as we come together in this moment in time, now let us sit. Now let us sit together. So I like to invite you to, if you need to transition from a seat to a cushion, or if your body at this point needs to lie down for medical conditions, transition to your sitting posture. And if you're sitting up, it's very helpful to have an upright position. Landing, really landing into your body, into your posture. And we'll be sitting for about 30 or so minutes, maybe just a little longer, lightly guided meditation. Setting the intention. Why am I sitting right now? What is my intention right now to sit, to meditate? What do I want to cultivate in this moment? Let it be personal. Connect with your intention. Allow the intention to be uplifting, to be an aspiration, not a should, not a command or reprimand. You're going to be mindful for the next 30 minutes. No, let it be aspirational. Let it be gentle. Let it be kind. Whatever your aspiration is, uplifting. And with that, release, drop. Feeling your feet connected to the earth. Feeling the connection of the bottom of your feet, or if you're sitting on a cushion, the bottom of your legs. Feeling your sit bones, your bottom on the cushion or the chair. Feel your connection to the earth. Touch points, points of contact. Where does your bottom end and the chair, the cushion begin? Can you tell? Or is it a sea of sensations? Sea of sensations. Pressure, heaviness, hardness, softness. All the sensations. Your bottom, on the bottom of your feet. And from this groundedness, this deep rootedness, feel your spine upright, as if being pulled up by an invisible string connected to the top of your head. Your muscles, your arms, your hands, your trunk can relax, your neck, shoulders, your head, and yet there's an internal sense of integrity that pulls you up. Well rooted, well rooted to the earth. And upright, rising up, rising up. You have roots and wings. You have both roots, embodied, rooted, and you have wings. Let it be natural. There's no doing to be done. Not doing it, but being it. And by relaxing, softening, letting go of trying too hard. The mind, the body, the heart can relax into being grounded, and upright with integrity, with aspiration. Let the center of your gravity be lowered from your head, where we're often thinking, planning, remembering. Bring the center of gravity down, down, down to your belly, lower abdomen, your sit bones, and even your legs and feet. Let it be center of gravity in your lower body. Relaxing, softening your forehead. Your eyes in their socket. Your cheeks. Your jaw. Your entire face. Let it droop. No need to wear a mask. Softening and relaxing neck and shoulders. Upper arms, elbows, lower arms and hands. your hands rest, giving their weight, offering their weight to the earth. Relaxing your chest, upper back, lower back. Releasing your abdomen from the inside. Releasing any tension in your groin area. Landing, landing deeper. Releasing the sit bones. Any tightness, tension, holding. Let the weight of your entire upper body drop into your seat. Releasing the weight in the upper legs, the knees, onto the earth, lower legs, the feet. You're supported by the earth. Offer your weight. Offer yourself to the earth. Feel the gravity holding you. Pulling you, supporting you. Stay. So relaxing, so soothing. Not floating in space, but held by gravity. All muscles can relax, give their weight to gravity, as if a cocoon, a loving embrace. Let go. You are held. And with each out breath, let go some more. If you feel like you've let go, you've relaxed, you've released any holding the body tension. Can I let go some more with this out breath? Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. And then more. And then more with the next out breath until you're soft, soft inside. Receiving, receiving the breath as you let go of the tension more and more. As you let go of any tightness or holding the mind, the body, the mind heart. Become hollow, a vessel you can receive more. Receive the goodness of the breath. Just this breath. And the body, the entirety of the breath, entirety of the in-breath, the pause between in-breath and out-breath. Receive it, the out-breath, the entirety of it. And the pause again. So calming, nourishing to just receive the breath, taking refuge here and now. Your thoughts, plans, if they come and knock on your door, it's okay. Tell them thank you, not now. Come back later. I'm giving my heart to this practice right now. If they're important enough, trust they will come back. You don't have to figure it out right now. Give your heart all of it, wholeheartedly. Cultivating presence, simple presence with the breath, with the body in this moment. And if it might support your aspiration, your groundedness, consider that you are not practicing alone right now. You're practicing with Sangha together. all of us together. On this earth, held by the earth, alive in this moment in time, practicing one breath at a time together. Supporting each other with our presence. One breath at a time. What a gift to ourselves and others to just be here. Sit, be breathed. Such a gift to ourselves, to others. Practice, cultivate presence. It's a gift we give ourselves, it's a gift we give others. With each breath in this body, and whatever arose or did not arise during this period of sitting, can we be kind? Can we appreciate that we sat, we aligned, we did our best to align our actions of the mind, the body, and internal speech, align our actions with our aspiration. We did our best. And letting go of the rest, letting go of the outcome, which is born of so many causes and conditions. But to appreciate ourselves for having showed up as best as we've been able to. Thank you, me. Thank you for showing up and doing your best. Thank you. Seeing the goodness in yourself, created, co-created by you, the Sangha in this moment, in this period of practice, and then together, trusting there is goodness co-created. Of course there is. Let there not be any doubt that there's goodness co-created here in this cultivation, and offer this goodness freely with generosity, your goodness, all of our goodness, together as a gift to all beings everywhere. May my practice, may my intentions, my cultivation be a cause and condition for all beings. Happiness, freedom, liberation. May this goodness support all beings, and all beings includes myself. May it support me as well. And all beings to wake up, to be free. May all beings everywhere be free, including myself. Thank you all. Thank you for your practice for the benefit of ourselves and all beings. I feel nourished by our sitting together. And actually, I'd like to invite you, if you like, maybe share a word or two or a phrase in chat. What's arising for you right now? I think the word for me is nourished. That's what's really coming up in my heart. Feel nourished. Practicing is so sweet, isn't it? Even if you're distracted, it's still sweet. So please feel free to type in chat. Connected. Thank you. Acceptance. Patient. Refreshed. Relax. Stress-free. Empty. Thank you for these reflections. They're beautiful. Contented. Contented. Yes, lovely. And it's all welcome. If you feel distracted and stressed, that's okay too. That's fine too. Not pushing anything to the side or under the carpet. It's all okay. It's all welcome. Part of what's arising. Light. Loved. Beautiful. And also, if anybody's moved to share any reflections, bring it into the container. You're welcome to. Unmute yourself if you like, or raise your Zoom hand. Loved, grounded, clear, thankful. Sweet. So, like to transition and offer some reflections. And I realize we've been sitting now. We've been sitting at least for 53 minutes according to my clock, and out of kindness for our bodies, I suggest, and before we gather to listen and share the Dharma, to take a 2-minute stretch break, bio break, just to care for this body. Science tells us how much moving, stretching is important, and how bad it is for you to be sitting on not moving for a long period of time. It's as bad as smoking, some research says. So let's just take, tell you what, let's take 3 minutes. So it's 53 past the hour. Let's come back to, it's now 54 past the hour. Let's come back at 57 past the hour. Is that okay? Enough time to stretch a bit? Okay. All right. See you in about 3 minutes. So with that, what I'd like to speak about today, as you've already had the, excuse me, as already the description, the title and description was shared with you, is the unexpected power of random acts of kindness. The unexpected power of random acts of kindness. So we have so much power. We have so much power, both in how we impact ourselves, our mind state, our actions, our the future, our future happiness, essentially forming our karma, which is one way to understand karma. So we have so much power to both impact ourselves as well as other people. And of course, that is karma as well, because we're impacting them. And but yet we underestimate the power, the agency that we have, both for unwholesomeness, but especially I want to focus on wholesomeness today. I want to focus on the power we really have, the agency we have, and we underestimate that we're actually deluded. Yes, I want to use that word. We're deluded. Greed, hatred, and delusion. We are deluded. So I want to start this talk by actually talking a little bit about greed, hatred, and delusion. These three, because they sometimes tend to be confusing. Like, what are these Buddhists talking about with this greed, hatred, and delusion? I want to talk, especially the delusion bit. Usually deludes people. What is that? I want to talk a little bit about that from perhaps a different lens, a lens that usually Dharma teachers don't talk about. Maybe the scientific lens I want to bring in, and then talk about this delusion we have, this ignorance we have, this moha we have about the power of kindness, random acts of kindness, both on ourselves, the impact it has on our own well-being, on our own happiness, on our own goodness, on our cultivation, how it shifts and changes us doing these tiny, small, little random acts of kindness, as well as the impact it has on others. We really underestimate, and there's some scientific research actually that has come out that I want to refer to. So, which suggests us that people underestimate the impact of this all the time. So actually, this is what this talk is inspired by. An article in the New York Times that came up that actually talks about this research that has recently come out. I'll talk about all of that later, but I'm setting the agenda. This is what I'm going to talk about. So being an academic, we were taught, say what you're going to talk about, then talk about it, unpack it, and then at the end, say what you've just talked about. So this is the agenda for today. I'm going to be talking a little bit about delusion, confusion, and about these studies, and also not just the scientific perspective, but also the Buddhist perspective of random acts of kindness and kindness, both on ourselves and others. So there are two dimensions here, two aspects. So first, as I'm setting this up about this, about us having a delusion, really not appreciating how profound the impact of these random acts of kindness are on us and on others, and framing that in terms of delusion. Speaking about greed, hatred, and delusion. So greed, hatred, and delusion are in Buddhism the three roots of unwholesome actions, and their opposite actually. Non-greed is generosity, non-hatred is love, and non-delusion is wisdom. I love their opposites, right? We usually talk about the poisonous roots, but their opposites are so beautiful. So now understanding the greed and hatred, generosity and love, it's straightforward, right? We understand that. It's greed and wanting, attaching, wanting more of, and not being generous, not sharing with others, not so that we can understand, right? And hatred, yes, hatred we can understand too. The opposite of love, it's opposite of compassion, cruelty. So hatred we can understand that too. But what's this delusion bit? What's this confusion? What's this ignorance bit? So delusion or ignorance or moha is taught to be the root, actually the root of the other two. Is taught to be the root of greed and hatred. And this is the way it's understood, and it makes sense. So because if we really knew better if human beings knew better, if we knew better, but it's not just the knowledge, it's not just the knowing with our minds, but it's a deep knowing. If we really deeply knew, if we understood how our actions impact ourselves and others, we wouldn't hate, we wouldn't have greed. So that underlying delusion, that underlying ignorance of not really understanding what is best, what leads to happiness, what leads to better outcomes. It's that delusion of not knowing any better. But again, it's not just a mental knowing. It's not that it's seeing with our hearts. It's not having dust in our eyes. So it's that, as the Buddha has used in the simile. So that sense of delusion, confusion, not it's being tricked. It's being tricked into thinking that, oh, hatred, just not seeing the damage of hatred, not seeing the damage of greed. So that sense of confusion or delusion actually is similar to cognitive bias in psychology. And many of you might have heard this, being psychologists, perhaps even yourself. Cognitive bias is when we know something as a human being, we know that we know it, and yet we're impacted by it because it's part of our psychology, and we really have to work against it. We really have to be clearly wise about how this bias might be impacting us, not in order to be impacted by it. Otherwise, it's part of the delusion, the dust in our eyes, as how we interact with others and environment. So I want to give you a few examples in the light of seeing delusion. One way to see illusion, it's not the complete way to see delusion and ignorance, but one way we can relate to ignorance is this cognitive bias. And I wanted to share with you a few other cognitive biases that we have. And again, framing the talk today, there is a cognitive bias we have. We just don't understand, even though we're told, like, hey, you really made my day by just smiling at me in the morning. Like, oh, really? Was it that profound? We have this cognitive bias of not getting it. So I wanted to share with you a few other cognitive biases. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen in a moment. Yeah, there are lots of cognitive biases. So let's see. Here we go. Share screen. There. I hope you can see that. Okay, great. And I can also put the link here so that you can look at this later. In fact, why don't I can't do it right now because I'm sharing my screen. But so there are lots of cognitive biases. We have many of them. Here are 50 of them on this infographic, like lots and lots of cognitive effects. So there is the, say there's just what psychologists call the self-serving bias. Our failures are situational, but our successes are our responsibility, right? Isn't that a funny one, right? We have, it's like, oh yeah, I failed because, the dog ate my homework, and whereas, yes, I worked hard. So it's a delusion. It's a bias we have. And so take these with a grain of salt, have humor about these biases. Just all of us human beings, we have this. It's part of our it's part of our nature. Yes, the recording will be available, I trust. And there's groupthink. Due to a desire for conformity and harmony in the group, we make irrational decisions, often to minimize conflict. Yes, we know we do this, right? There's a bias here. There is the halo effect. If you see a person as having a positive trait, that positive impression will spill over into their other traits. This also works for negative traits. There's so many delusions we have, so many biases we have, etc., 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 etc. It goes on and on. So I like. Let's see if I can find the recency effect. The recency effect is an interesting one. Where is that? I saw it earlier today. I don't see it. But basically, recency effect is that our judgment is impacted by whatever happened the most recently. It's what we remember the most recently. So there's so many biases we have. And to this, we can add the bias. In fact, let me put this. I'm going to put the link. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to put the link to this in chat so you have it. Oh, I think somebody already did. Oh, yeah, great. Perfect. Thank you for doing that, Irene. That's great. So yeah, so we have lots of biases or delusions. It's just and and um and as a part of the talk and maybe I'll give a talk, an entire talk at some point about the various delusions we have, right? About the various biases we have and how they impact our seeing or practicing. Okay, I'll just make some up. We have this delusion, perhaps many of us have this bias of, oh, waking up, me? No, not me. Other people can wake up and or maybe the Buddha woke up, maybe a few people around, at that time woke up, but no, not me. It's not possible for me. Yes, it is. Of course it is. Otherwise, he wouldn't be teaching about it. It is possible to wake up, of course. What are some of the other biases, cognitive biases we have in Buddhism? If you have some good ones, maybe you can raise your hand or type them in chat. Oh yes, here's a cognitive bias that new practitioners have. All new practitioners, when they start to sit and see their mind going everywhere and being a monkey mind, it's just me. My mind is defective. Everybody else, they're just calm. They're in, nibbana. I'm the defective one. I'm the only one who has trouble with calming my mind. Yes, imposter syndrome. Thank you. That too. Yeah, I'm a terrible practitioner. Like, oh my goodness. Again, it kind of relates to that. Like, do I even know? I've been practicing for decades. I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, yeah, I don't. Yeah, I have made no progress. And then when you actually talk to people, like, look at what has shifted. Oh yeah, it has. So yes, imposter syndrome being another one. So there are all these delusions, all these cognitive biases that we have, so many of them. So I think, in fact, studying the Dharma, becoming mindful and practicing with mindfulness, um, and vipassana, and seeing impermanence, seeing not self, seeing unsatisfactoriness is actually a way of, well, actually it is, because it is a way for us to see, to uproot greed, hatred, and delusion. That's what the Buddha has taught. So we really get to see our biases, our beliefs, our patterns, those that are perhaps personal to us, and those that are more fundamental to being human, like the recency effect and et cetera, et cetera. So studying the self, as studying our biases, studying our patterns, studying our delusions. So now that I've framed moha, delusion, as a way, in the way of cognitive bias. Again, there's more to delusion, but that's one way to see it. Actually, I'm going to pause before I move on to the rest of the talk, which really focuses on our on random acts of kindness and studies about that. So let me just pause and actually make space for questions, comments before we get to the end. So any questions, comments, clarifications, aha moments you'd like to share for the benefit of the Sangha? Is this way of relating to delusion helpful to you? Is it new? Is it different? Well, I know I haven't heard it before, but is it helpful to you? Kind of see delusion slightly in a different light, in a more approachable light, perhaps. If anybody would like to say anything about that. Paul and Lisa say, yes, very helpful. Did not know there were so many ways to delude myself. It's great. Love it. Thanks for that. Yeah. Yeah. Sky says, are all thoughts moha? No, thoughts, not all thoughts are moha. There's also moha, right? There are thoughts. So moha, delusion, and in Pali, when you put in front of a word, it becomes its negative. So amoha is equivalent to wisdom, is another word for wisdom. So amoha, yeah, there are plenty of thoughts that are thoughts of wisdom, thoughts of kindness, thoughts of benevolence, compassion, wisdom. It just yeah, and so no, not all thoughts are moha. I hope that if there's more follow up needed, Sky, let me know. But no, Ralph, in some ways it makes my delusion acceptable. Yeah, right. Thank you for that. Exactly. It's not just that, oh, you have delusion, you terrible human being, you're deluded. Like, oh yeah, this is part of how we operate. Can we see through it? Can we wake up through these biases and delusions? Yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you for that, Ralph. The normalizing. And when something is normalized, it's easier to deal with instead of perhaps being ashamed of it or see it as just my problem or my delusion. But yeah, this is a part of the human condition, to have this delusion. And can we chip away by cultivating kindness and wisdom, by cultivating non-hatred, which is love. Remember, non-hatred is love, and cultivating non-greed, which is generosity. Well, guess what? The topic of today is cultivating generosity, cultivating random acts of kindness, which is both generosity and love. It's really related. So how can we see through our delusion and cultivate wisdom by seeing the power of acts of non-hatred, love, and non-greed, generosity, right? So you see how today's topic relates to greed, hatred, and delusion. All right, so I'm going to move on now to the topic. Thank you for those reflections. They're really wonderful. Great. So, um, so so I'll also give you the reference for this um, um, article that came out in New York Times, and you can look at it later. And I will be drawing from it and reading from it. It's the name of the article is New York, the unexpected power of random acts of kindness, and it came out in September 2nd of this year. And in that, they talk about these various studies, and I followed up and pulled up those studies and read the studies, and then um, read some other studies that were relevant from the other direction. So this particular article really talks about how we underestimate, or this article and the studies talk about how we underestimate the impact we have on others. But there's also studies done on how we underestimate the impact of the acts of kindness on us. And that's really interesting. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit. Okay. So let's see. So the article starts, and I'll share this because this might be a typical experience that many of us have. That in late August, Erin Alexander, 57, sat in the parking lot of a Target store in Fairfield, California, and wept. Her sister-in-law had recently died, and Miss Alexander was having a hard day. A barista working at Starbucks inside the Target was too. The espresso machine had broken down, and she was clearly stressed. Miss Alexander, who'd stopped crying and gone into for some caffeine, smiled, ordered an iced green tea, and told her to hang in there. After picking up her order, she noticed a message on the cup. Erin, the barista, had scrawled next to a heart. Your soul is golden. I'm not sure I even necessarily know what your soul is golden means, said Ms. Alexander, who laughed and cried while recalling the incident. But the warmth of that small and unexpected gesture from a stranger who had no inkling of what she was going through moved her deeply. Of course, I was still really sad, Miss Alexander said, but that little thing made the rest of my day. So, how common is it for us? How many experiences have we had when someone's random act of kindness? So, starting there, how that we know the impact on us, but somebody's random act of kindness just made our day. Maybe we were going through a really hard time that day, and someone just smiling at us, or being kind and or saying it's okay. Maybe we were even on the phone with support, with tech support, and they were particularly kind, patient, and just that's the soothing salve we needed that day because we're going through such a hard time. Maybe the other person had no inkling of of what they had done, but we know the impact for us. So, but it turns out that people we tend to underestimate. So this first part of what I like to share, we tend to underestimate the impact that our random acts of kindness have on others. So that's something I want to lit us up with. So this study, which was published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology, um, it's found that they've done lots of different experiments in different settings, and and um, and I'll describe a few of those. But basically, it's corroborated that we have this delusion uh, of underestimating how much the recipient will appreciate our random act of kindness, and the fact that we often miscalculate um, how it impacts others, we tend to hold back from random acts of kindness. We hold back because also we first we don't know how impactful it is. And number two, we hold back because maybe we think we feel shy, we feel maybe there's some shyness or like, oh, they don't need that, it doesn't impact them so much. So there are all these again cognitive biases or delusions that we don't impact, we don't share random acts of kindnesses. So here are a few of the studies they did just to get more into it in depth and the flavor of it. So um, they they did some experiments. They actually basically did 8 small experiments with different designs and participants. And some of them they uh, had classmates offering rides home from campus, baking cookies, or buying someone a cup of coffee. So, and then they had people after they did these random acts of kindness, and some of them are actually quite interesting and uh, uh, well, interestingly designed, as I'll describe. They had the person who did the random act of kindness rate how much they thought the act impacted others, and then they had the recipient rate the impact that the act of kindness had on them. And statistically significantly, you would see a difference in how much people thought they had an impact and what the impact was on the receiver. So so and the rating was from scale of 0, the recipient fr- uh, from very small 0 to 10. And oh, actually, I hope I explained this correct, but they had the recipient, right, the person who had done the act of kindness to rate how the recipient's mood would shift or how it would impact them. Yeah, I think I already explained that, but I just wanted to be very clear. So what they did was they had people an ice skating rink. Uh, they were given a hot chocolate from actually, this is one of the interesting ones. They were given a hot chocolate from the snack kiosk in the ice skating rink, and they were told that they could either keep the cup for themselves or they could give it to a stranger. And then they did this rating. So this was one of the other studies. And again, statistically significantly, the impact on the receiver who received the hot chocolate was bigger than what they estimated. And then they did another more complicated study. They had a control group of 50 participants where 50 participants received a cupcake for simply participating. This is another study for simply participating in this study. Okay. And then there were 50 people who did not receive a cupcake, and basically they asked them how they thought they would feel if they had received the cupcake. So they're setting lots of controls. This is a more sophisticated study. And then they had a third group of 50 where they were told that they could give a cupcake away to strangers and asked to rate their own mood as well as believe and how they believe the recipient would feel. Okay. And again, the researchers in this case found that the people who got the cupcake as a result of the random act of kindness felt better than the person on the giving end thought they would. So again, statistically significantly, again, the person who received it, they had more of an impact. So, and now here's the interesting piece: the people who got the cupcake as a result of random act of kindness, they rated themselves higher on the happiness scale than the people who got a cupcake just because they participated in the study. Isn't that interesting? In both cases, somebody has got a free cupcake. That's pretty good, right? But in one case, because they felt, wow, somebody gave me a cupcake out of kindness. It was just, they gave me, wow, it touched them. It impacted them more strongly than getting it because, oh yeah, you participate in the study and here's, so isn't that, so that impact is significant when there is this attribution of kindness. There's this attribution that this person is going out of their way. They don't have to be kind to me. They don't have to give me a cupcake. They don't have to say a nice thing. They don't have to smile, but they are. It impacts the lives of others more significantly. That is pretty cool. Wow. That is pretty cool. So, and again, with all of these different eight studies, all the ways they did them, there was always the I want to say that again and again. People who did the act of kindness always underestimated how it would impact the receiver. So that's the message to keep remembering. And yeah, and it's again and even more impact when people thought that somebody has done something nice for them, another person has done something nice for them. Now I'll come to this more, but there are various studies. There's actually, maybe I'll go to that next. Or there are other studies that show. There was another study about with texting, where people who texted. Let's see if I find that. I was going to talk about that later. Maybe I'll talk about that later. It's a study on texting where when people texted someone else, again, they reaching out to friends, the random, just sending a text, hi, how are you? How are you doing? The impact that just reaching out has on the other person, especially if the other person doesn't expect it. there's another study there, how it impacts the other person, the receiver. I mean, and let me say it again. The person who sends the text, again, the study suggests that people underestimate the impact it has on the receiver. So that's another study that another group did with texting, of giving cupcakes and rides, but with texting. And so that's is such a simple thing, when you reach out to a friend you haven't, or a family member you haven't talked for a while. It's like, oh yeah, they're busy, I don't want to text them. No, you are underestimating the impact it has on them, the impact of the random act of kindness, in the way of, how are you thinking of you? Oh, this person is thinking of me. Oh, how nice. So we hold back. We make ourselves smaller than we actually are, in our agency, in our kindness, in the impact we can have in all these small and not so small ways through the day. There's another story I remember reading some time ago that I think might have been during the pandemic, that somebody was having a really, really hard time, and they were feeling lonely, and quite desperate. And every day they would go for a walk, and there was a neighbor that was walking and would smile, would share a smile. And later, after this person went through their hard time, they finally talked to the neighbor and said, I was going through a really, really hard time, and my life was hanging by a thread, really hanging by a thread. The fact that every day I saw you, and just consistently you beamed this bright smile at me, it kept me going. Just, I felt there's goodness in the world. There's a sense of connection, personal connection. There's this goodness in the world. And your smile kept me going. And here I am, because of you. And again, when we share a smile from that perspective, shifting that perspective, you have no idea how significant that might be for that person. Is it really their lifeline to continue to live? So underestimating our impact. Now, the other way around, that's been well known. The impact of random acts of kindness on our own well-being has been researched and well known, and yet again, we underestimate about the impacts of kindness and generosity on our own well-being, on our own karma. So there are studies that show that it helps lower our stress level, and stress translated as dukkha. Dukkha can be translated as suffering, can be translated as stress, as unsatisfactoriness. So it brings perceived dukkha, random acts of kindness. And now let me jump to speaking about some of those studies. So there are also studies, for example, this one is how spending money on others promote happiness. And we know this. And again, this is an act of kindness when we're generous to others versus spending the money on ourselves. So can put this also in chat later. This is an interesting study that came out a few years ago. You can look at it later. Here we go. Let's see here. Put it in chat. Oops. Okay. I'll put this later. It didn't get cut and paste, but anyway, I'll continue. So this is a 2008 study that was published in the Journal Science by Harvard Business School professor Michael Norton, that he and his colleagues found that despite participants' prediction to the contrary, and this is the fun part again here, we have a delusion here. So the participants predicted the contrary. They thought they would be happier spending the money on themselves versus others. And in fact, in spite of their prediction, giving money to someone else increase their own happiness more than spending it on ourselves. Delusion, right? Another bias we have. Isn't that interesting that consistently human beings, it's us, we get that wrong. So as part of this study, what the authors, the Michael Norton says is that, the study addresses the paradox that economists have talked about for a long time, that increases in income don't tend to lead to big increases in happiness. People buy bigger and bigger houses, but they don't seem to get much happier as a result. So in this work, there was a national survey that included of 632 American men and women, and how much they made annually, and how much they spent on bills, expenses, gifts, etc., and what they spent monthly on gifts to other people and donations to charity. And then they asked them to rate their level of happiness. And then the findings showed that people who spend more on others, what this research team called prosocial spending, they reported greater level of happiness, while how much they spend on themselves had no impact on happiness. Whoa, that's interesting, right? That's another delusion we have. That's very interesting. And then they did another test. And so they're just, again, this paper has a bunch of other studies. And another one, they tracked 16 employees who spent a profit sharing bonus at a Boston company. And a month before receiving their bonus, which was about $5,000, the employees were asked to rate their level of happiness. And after they received the bonus, they were asked again what their level of happiness was, along with the question of how they would spend the money. So those who spend the bonus more on others registered a higher level of happiness than those who spent it on themselves. And in addition, the actual size of the bonus had no influence on people's happiness. Like, these results are so interesting to me. Being interested in how the mind works, how the heart works, for freedom, for our happiness. It's what we expect will bring happiness to us and to others is really acting, coming back to the framework of greed, hatred, and delusion. Greed or non-greed, generosity, non-hatred, love, they lead to more wisdom, to more happiness. There's one other study I wanted to share with you. I think it's so interesting. So the fact that the dollar amount had no impact, statistical impact, and then here's another one. So in the third experiment, researchers at UBC, University of British Columbia, handed envelopes of monies to students on campus. And the recipient was told whether to spend the money, either $5 or $20 by the end of the day, either on themselves to cover bills or expenses, or get themselves a gift, or on someone else. And then again, sure enough, those who spend the money on themselves weren't much happier by the evening. And those who spend it on others, and didn't matter whether it was $5 or $20 they had received, they showed that it had made them happier to spend it on others. So this random, again, I put that under the context of random act of kindness. It's a random act of kindness. We know this, right? In some ways, we've all experienced this. You've done a random act of kindness, an act of generosity. It's made you happier. It's shifted your own karma towards more generosity, towards more letting go, towards more ease, towards more spaciousness instead of clinging. So these are small ways through the random acts of kindness, we shift little by little our karma, our tendency, the way we show up, the way we show up in the world. It's not just making other people happy, which actually we're having impact on the world too. impacting when we, at the end of every sit or practice, when we dedicate the goodness of our practice, well, for the happiness and freedom of others, well, yes, that as well as these acts of kindness, these acts of generosity, little by little by little, the impact they have on others, which we underestimate, and the impact they have on us, which we again underestimate. So, yeah. So a couple of other things. One is a few other things. One is from the Dhammapada, or adapting a simile from the Dhammapada. One gets filled with kindness little by little, just as a water jug gets filled by dripping water drop by drop by drop. So it's really drop by drop by drop. It's not so much the yes, big acts are great, but yet our karma gets shifted and changed little by little by little, drop by drop by drop. And we get filled by kindness, by goodness. We get shifted drop by drop by drop. So do not underestimate the power of all these drops, all these droplets, all these random acts of kindness at the post office, at the grocery store, with your family, with your friends, just these random acts of kindness, random acts of kindness. Really, that's how we get changed and shifted, drop by drop by drop. We underestimate the power of these small acts of kindness. And few pointers from the suttas. So in Itivuttaka 18, the Buddha says, practitioners, if people knew, as I know, the fruits of sharing gifts, they would not enjoy their use without sharing them, nor would the taint of stinginess obsess the heart. Even if it was their last bit, their last morsel of food, they would not enjoy its use without sharing it if there was someone else to share it with. I appreciate how the Buddha says, practitioners, if people knew, as I know. So there's something here he's pointing out again about this delusion, this bias. If people knew, as I know, the fruits of sharing gifts, the fruits of sharing gifts. Another thing to also consider in from the sutta, a person of integrity's gifts, the Sapurisa Dana Sutta. The Buddha says these 5 are persons of integrity's gifts. Which 5? A person of integrity gives a gift with a sense of conviction. I like that, a sense of conviction. So that connects with our intention, right? And so, person of integrity gives a gift with a sense of conviction. A person of integrity gives a gift attentively. And there's so many ways to be attentive with a gift. For example, I consider it really important when giving a gift or giving an envelope or something to someone, giving it with both hands, looking in their eyes instead of just kind of like giving them with one hand or like dangling it like, hey, here's a gift. Attentively, really giving them your attention, your heart. A person of integrity gives a gift in season. Okay, that doesn't need explanation. A person of integrity gives a gift with an empathetic heart. I like that. Empathetic heart. So a sense of give it for your benefit, just like me. It's not a sense of less than me, but it's just like me. I give it for your benefit. A person of integrity, this is the last one, the 5th one. A person of integrity gives a gift without adversely affecting themselves or others. And this is an important one in Buddhism too. Very important. There's a sense of giving these gifts for without adversely affecting yourself and others. And I was having a conversation with a friend who's a Christian, and this last one was interesting to them because they were saying that in Christianity there is the sense of give above and beyond, whereas in Buddhism there is a sense of wisdom 360, that giving a gift should not adversely impact yourself. So, yeah, and I want to end with a poem by Danusha Lameris. It's called Small Kindnesses. I've been thinking about the way when you walk down a crowded aisle, people pull in their legs to let you by, or how strangers still say bless you when someone sneezes, a leftover from the bubonic plague. Don't die, we are saying. And sometimes when you spill lemons from your grocery bag, someone else will help you pick them up. Mostly, we don't want to harm each other. We want to be handed our cup of coffee hot and to say thank you to the person handing it, to smile at them and for them to smile back, for the waitress to call us honey when she sets down the bowl of clam chowder, and for the driver in the red pickup truck to let us pass. We have so little of each other now, so far from tribe and fire, only these brief moments of exchange. What if they are the true dwelling of the holy, these fleeting temples we make together when we say, here, have my seat. Go ahead, you first. I like your hat. I love that. Only these brief moments of exchange. What if they are the true dwelling of the holy, these fleeting temples we make together? True dwelling of the holy, these fleeting temples we make together. So I'd like to end my talk and thank you for your kind attention and open it up for questions and reflections. See Kathy's hand.
I just wanted to ask you who the poet was again.
The poet is Danusha Lemer. Tell you what, I'm going to put it in chat. I'll see. Sometimes chat doesn't let you. I think they might have changed that. If I can put the whole poem in chat, I am going to. Here we go. There. Tell you what. Oh, here it is. You have the whole poem. It's lovely.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. Yeah. As I'm waiting for questions or comments, maybe another thing I'll share with you is while I was researching the talk with Random Acts of Kindness, I found there was this little news story on a grandma in Tampa, Florida, who started a smile and wave challenge on Nextdoor, and Nextdoor is this. Many of you are already familiar with it. Is this platform where neighbors exchange information and etc. So in Tampa, Florida, I think this is also during the pandemic. It was just I think she was noticing that people just need the support. So what she started was they had her interview. In an interview, she was saying the old saying is, if someone doesn't have a smile, then give them yours. Yeah, and it just seems to let the other person relax a bit and let their defenses down. The fact that you've just given them 10 seconds of your time is just so important, she said, this grandma. And apparently she started this whole, movement in Tampa, Florida, which spread to other neighborhoods of people of waving and smiling, and it was sweet. And in the interview they had done with her, she was especially if people were not responding back, she would really try to wave and smile at them and get their attention and really give them their smile because she felt they really needed it. They really needed it. So there was just so much kindness in her. So just smiling, making the world a happier, a more friendly place. And really, that's just metta. So what? Yes, Philip, please.
Thank you. It seems to me that random acts of kindness are pretty rare. I don't see it very often. And when I do, it's always a little bit surprising. I think most people know that a very small random act of kindness can take very little time. So that's not necessarily a reason why they're so rare. Have you done some thinking about this? And what do you think? Why are they so rare?
Yeah. A couple of things. Thank you for that. One is it depends what we mean by random acts of kindness first, Philip. So to me, actually, random acts of kindness are not rare at all. I see them all over the place. And that might be because of our operational definition of random acts of kindness. So to me, as this poem by Danusha Lameris points out, just saying hello, saying thank you, saying go ahead, you go first, or I like your smile, I like your hat, I like your out, just your outfit. All of these are random acts of kindness, or saying bless you in public. Just all of these are random acts of kindness. So just extending kindness instead of me, my island, I don't relate to you, I don't, or in grocery store, just smiling at people. Just all of this are random acts of kindnesses, and I see them all over the place. I see them, I feel them, or friends reaching out, or I reaching out to other. It just my world feels filled with them. But if you set the bar really high, of really, then maybe you see them less frequently. So that's the first thought I have to share. And then the other thought is, okay, now let's say, all right, we see them less than uh, still taking that pieces of they're not as common as they would be. That's why I'm giving this talk. That's why I'm raising attention about the fact that we underestimate their impact on others. Maybe that's why they're rare, because we don't, we have this delusion. Hello. We have this bias of underestimating their impact on other people and on ourselves. We underestimate. Like that is the whole topic of the day. And so thank you, Philip, for asking that again. Why are they rare? Because we underestimate how important they are for our development, especially as Buddhist practitioners. We underestimate. That's why they are so rare. We underestimate, and also other reasons, because as I mentioned, people may feel shy or not needed, but it's really about, if you knew how impactful they are, just as Buddha says, practitioners, if you knew, as I know, how impactful these acts are, you wouldn't let a moment go without sharing, people. So that's my message today. That's my public service message today. Spread random acts of kindness. It no act is small, too small. No act is too small, and it will have an impact on others, on yourself. It just that this is how it happens. This is how we get filled, drop by drop, by goodness, and wake up. I hope that addresses a bit, Philip.
Oh, yes, very, very helpful. I'm thinking of the random notion specifically. There are, of course, acts of kindness constantly happening everywhere. But there's a certain kind that's a random act that goes out of one's way to do something. It might be small, it might be big. And actually, that's what I was talking about in terms of those being. It seems like it's kind of scary.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that too. And yet, if we knew how important it was, right, I think it would reduce the scariness. And also to start small. I think that's what I would say. It's it's like the saying, waking up is an accident. Meditation makes you more accident prone. So the same way, random acts of kindness, when you do these smaller random acts of hello and thank you and smiling and just opening yourself up to appropriate response, then those the larger random acts of kindness, say for it's harder nowadays because there were times when people would pay for the person behind them in the toll booth, like, and then the next person would pay back. Like now we all have these digital passes, right? We just go through. But maybe you can, as you're doing these hellos and thank yous and seeing, where there's opportunity to be helpful. Where are these opportunities? Your mind starts shifting and turning to find opportunities to be kind and helpful. And is it somebody who's carrying a bag and it's really heavy and it's clearly they're struggling? Can you lift it for them? It just, your mind starts shifting and changing, and these things, like when you go out of your way, become more they become in your purview. Maybe that's why. Let's start small. Other reflections. I'm looking at the chat also. I see John and I see Walter. Got a few minutes left. John, please.
Yeah, the two things that strike me is the idea of being able to share what you've received. I mean, that's wonderful, because now you're maximizing the benefit of happiness. You're paying it forward. That can have an exponential effect upon the world. And also the reflection of, well, what is it that has been given to me? And opening that up, expanding your sense of gratitude, really understanding deeply how much has been given. I mean, there's so much I have, and that I'm so fortunate to have. And that makes it so much easier to be able to offer just a small act of kindness. It just, so yeah, those are both wonderful insights, I think.
Beautiful. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Walter. Yeah. And how gratitude and really appreciating our fullness. The fullness leads to generosity and kindness. And it's a circle of giving and receiving. We're receiving so much. We're so dependent on the kindness of so many people and beings on the planet. Like, oh, of course. Yeah. Thanks for that, Walter. John, please.
Thanks so much for this talk, Nikki. My question was just if you could maybe spend a quick moment speaking about the third aspect of a person acting with integrity, the giving the gift in season.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. The giving in season, it's the way I understand that is something, you can think of, in season. There's so many ways to understand that. Season, we think of seasons, maybe not give a wool sweater in the summer. I mean, that's one easy way, right? What easy way. But another one in season, I think of what's appropriate for the person. What is appropriate? The appropriateness. Again, for their season, the season of their life, the season of their development, with something in season. So those are the two ways that I think of that. Thanks, John. Hal, I see your hand.
Yeah, thank you. I was just reminded of, I think it was both Tara Brach and another psychologist I'm drawing, Brene Brown, who talk a lot about how we tend to armor up and live our lives, armored against the world, as opposed to being open and genuine. And I just see these random acts of kindness as a nice antidote to that.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Hal. Yeah, and along that, I think it goes without saying, as an inspiration, as an invitation in my talk, but just to make it more explicit, I like to invite you, encourage you, invite you, beckon you that today do a random act of kindness. Get out of your comfort zone. do something random and just it might be, and it might still be within your comfort zone. It's reaching out to a friend you haven't reached out before, texting them, could be anything. Just something and spread. And maybe if you talk to someone else later, share an insight that you've had from this time we've spent together. Just share it with them. Spread the seed of random acts of kindness in the world. Yeah. And I see we are at 12:01, so our time is done. So I'd like to share the benefit of our time together and then pass it to Insight San Diego. So thank you all. Thank you for your practice, for your showing up today wholeheartedly, sharing your time, sharing of your being, cultivating goodness, cultivating kindness, wisdom in this world. May our practice together and listening to the Dharma, asking questions, connecting with our intention, may it all be of service to all beings everywhere, to wake up, including ourselves. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. Thank you so much, everyone. May you be well. May you be kind. Thank you, Insight San Diego, for inviting me. Lovely to spend this time with you.